Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to remove the thoughts that hold you back? We got a show for you. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. If you haven't joined us on YouTube, go ahead and do that now. Subscribe buttons. You know when we go live every single dang time, and then hit the alert button. That's what.
So beep beep,
Beep,
alert, alert.
Right there, we got Casey.
Yeah, dude, you got it.
For us, you. And then go to a tribe of giants where you can find a great group of people that supports each other and amazing content. And so, yeah, if you haven't done that, go do that after the show. Don't do it now.
Unless you want to comment inside of the tribe, right?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah,
I'll reply later.
Yeah, that's perfect. Nick, will you introduce our guest? I'm excited about this one.
I will. Yeah, we got Casey Gilman, cool dude, loving husband, father, friend. His philosophy is that we can create miracles and huge changes in our lives simply by removing the thoughts and actions that are unknowingly holding us back. So why does he have this belief? Because he's lived and is living it. So you are infinite simplified. Welcome to the show, Casey. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys. I am humbled and grateful that reached out to share some space with this guy. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been cool to hear your story, kind of where you're coming from. I love the picture behind you. Lindsay painted that. Is that right?
Yeah.
A lot of symbolism in bamboo, that a lot of slow growth for years, and then it shoots up hundreds of feet within a few days. And it's kind of how your life goes. It's pretty symbolic of your life. Yeah. But as we dive into your journey, our vision with this is really to highlight your journey, your Giants journey to get where you are right now and go through the different levels. We have 12 journeys that we cover, and we always go back to the unconscious, the automatic, what was given to you during childhood or development, and then how you work through it. And we might get way off track, and that'd be okay too.
Yeah. We probably will.
So wherever you want to start, some people start with an awakening moment in their life that just really had them wake up. Some start back in childhood and development to give some context. It's totally up to you. Where would you like to begin?
Yeah, man. I think, first, before I start, I think what I want to say is, man, I appreciate you and I had a call before, and you told me that about the bamboo, and I was like, damn, man, that's perfect. That's perfect symbolism. And, Lindsay painted it before she knew me, but maybe she was just like preparing.
I wonder what my future husband looks like.
She manifested it. I mean,
he looks like raining in bamboo.
Years. No, man, I think, when I tell my story, because I've taken a lot of one-on-one calls and I've tried to tell my story a bunch of times, and it can take a long time to tell the story. So I got to kind of a little more time right now. So actually, I don't have to pick and choose as much. So I think where I'm going to start, man, I'll start at the beginning.
Let's go back.
So, man, my parents divorced when I was 5, and so that sets the stage for a lot of things, right?
I'm glad you didn't go further back. I thought you were
like how far to the beginning?
Can't go much farther.
All of a sudden I'm swimming and there's no, too far, man. Too far back.
They see light. They say swim to the light.
I made it. I was the one. Still am. But so yeah, my parents divorced when I was 5, and obviously that's a hard thing for any kids. My sister was 4. My dad, very big heart, very loving man. I don't believe at that point of his life he was a very good husband. And I saw that play out throughout my life, remarrying multiple times. And, so my mom raised 2 kids basically on her own. And, so we didn't have a lot of money, but she did her best to make sure that we didn't know or feel that. And she did great, man. She did great, but she worked multiple jobs,
Yeah.
so there was a lot of time, on my own and learning things on my own. And I didn't have a masculine role model for a lot of my life. Like I said, my dad had a big heart, and his way of showing it was as I grew up and I became like a skateboarder and stuff. Like my dad lived in the city, right? So the city, it's like it's pretty small, but but it wasn't the
City of
country.
500 people. Yeah.
It wasn't. So his way of showing love was to let me be me and do what I wanted to do. So I'll go see my dad on the weekends, but I would like get on my skateboard and go push around the town, and so it was like I didn't have that role model. But what I did have through that story was what I wanted a relationship to look like. And at like 8, 9 years old, that's a heavy thought to be like, I'm only ever getting married one time, and I'm only having kids with one woman, and I'm not doing this stuff, right? And it's a real heavy thing to weigh on you when you're young. And through that, from the time of like 7th grade, man, so what, like 12, all my relationships were 2 years plus, all of them. And by the time I got to like mid-teens or whatever, and you have a couple real long ones that don't work out, even though you're showing up how you're told by like media and stuff you're supposed to show up, and they're not working out. That started the difficult part of my journey, right?
Okay. Yeah. Like hang on to this, because
Yeah, let's do
before
it.
we go into the difficult part, there's really a nugget right here. One of my favorite researchers right now is Lisa Feldman Barrett, and she talks about the brain being an artifact of culture. And we have these expectations that we grow up with, is this is how life works and this is how it's supposed to go. And then we keep doing that and it's not working out. And then we start to judge ourselves because we're not measuring up to what we think the society wants or our world wants. And so our cultural artifact is out of alignment. There's dissonance because we've been taught this our whole life, is you do these things and that's what success is. And then you don't measure up to that. And so you start to judge yourself as faulty or broken.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the journey gets really hard, because you don't think that you are doing it right, or you're broken, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Does that bring
100%.
anything up for you?
Yeah, 100%. That's like exactly right. Sorry, I'm trying to get this thing to like look good.
You look good, my man.
Every angle is like, that looks good, man.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, man. And it's like, but it was funny because like I mentioned, right, I got into skateboarding big time.
Yeah.
And I was blessed to get into skateboarding, man. I started traveling with it, and I had a small circle of friends, right? And
Yeah.
they're still my best friends now, man. We're all over the country now, but if I call them, I know that they're there.
Yeah.
And through that, right, I got an experience with culture, right? We would take trips to California. We would take trips to New York City. We would take trips to Montreal. Like, I experienced all sorts of different people, all sorts of different things. And a lot of people from where I grew up didn't get that. They didn't do that. They didn't leave the town.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed in that way. But but the hard part came in, and I didn't realize it. And this will take us up to recent.
Yeah.
I didn't realize at that moment when one of my long-term relationships ended in my like later teens, early 20s, emotionally I stopped right there.
Okay.
Emotionally, I shut down. So from that point forward, I could not feel really sad, but I could not feel real happy.
Yeah.
Morning, Judy. Hope you guys are having an awesome time up there. It's amazing.
We stole Casey. Sorry, Lindsay.
Yeah, it was a retreat. You know, my wife is showing up powerfully this weekend with Judy, and all of those women are blessed, man. That's an amazing place. It's an amazing group. And
Sonoma, is that where they are?
they're in Sedona. Yeah, Sedona. The Vortex.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's beautiful up there. Yeah, you were close.
Yeah.
No, so I shut down.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it though, because here's the problem with shutting down emotionally. If you're not in a serious relationship, you don't know. You don't know, because every other relationship I had, friends, family, whatever, everyone's telling me how great I am and how much they love me, and they're all enjoying hanging out with me. And it's not a problem because you're not sharing like all these deep feelings on a regular basis with people. So no one notices it. So you don't notice it because you don't have it reflecting back to you.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but you know, you get into a serious relationship, and prior to Lindsay, I had a really long-term relationship, and that ended. And in retrospect, it was because I was shut down. And people can't handle that when they're with you, right? So now that brings us up to Lindsay and I, right? That's the quick version of the past. This is relatively recent. Not my relationship with Lindsay. That spans back a little while, but through our relationship, man, Lindsay's all about personal growth. She's all about personal development. You can tell when you see her posts, when you see her videos, like she's a beautiful human and amazing and brilliant. And so she pushed me, man. From day one, she pushed me. And at that point in my life, I was like, everyone loves me. You loved me when you met me. You don't like this shit, you can leave. Like, I was like, what do you mean I need to change and I need to grow? Like, it just wasn't my thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, I knew nothing of personal development because everyone told me I was like a good dude. So I was like, I don't need any more. I'm showing up awesome, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that really fucks with me, man. And apologies to anyone out there. Sorry I dropped that F-bomb, but
We have 3 F's that are allowed every time in these shows. If it talks about fractals, the fuck word, or farts, then we're good. We can go with it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, but if my daughter heard me, it would have been another $1.
Oh yeah, there's another
Put it on replay and then get you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to cut back on those. But yeah, man. So Lindsay and I get together, and I mean that's a whole story in of itself. How that came about, and I created it. And I tell you, like, I know that we're all familiar with Steve Hardison and the philosophy of being, and maybe a lot of people aren't, but my simplified version of it, right, is you're always being, you're just maybe not intentional with it, right? And you're being something, whether you're choosing it or not.
Yeah.
I called that my years of half-ass being, right? So I was showing up good. Yeah. I was showing up, taking care of people, being kind, being what I thought was a good human, but I wasn't intentional.
Can we highlight that?
Let's highlight that.
There's almost a spectrum, right? Of I don't need any of this. I'm good. You know, people can use me as a model. I'm so far out here on this side. Like I got it figured out. I don't need any of that stuff. And then there's somebody on the opposite side that just feels really broken. Like I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to make it through the day. I'm trying everything I can to get better, and it's not working. And even further than that is like I don't have a say at all, in my life. And so you kind of move up that spectrum and balancing it, right? Like getting into that space of recognizing that we all have room for growth in some area. And the ability to do it is another factor. If you don't think that you have a say in your life, then you don't really think you can change your way of being because it's outside of you. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. And what just came to me in what you said, right, was those two things. So like, you were saying you kind of move towards the end, from one end to the other. But the two examples that you just gave to me, I feel are both on this end, this end over here, right? And like, so like whether you like they're both on that end, because both of those situations, you're not being intentional. You're not being aware. That's both of those are half-ass being. You're not choosing it. Like you're in the mindset of,
I like that.
Either I'm good and I don't need to do shit. Use me for an example. Or you're like just distraught and you think everything's happening to you, right? And you have no control over anything. And I was both of those things at different times.
Yeah.
In different situations. And I tell people, and this is 100% honest, that looking back now, there was situations in my life where my half-ass being brought me something amazing, right? And looking back on it, I could have turned that into something so big, so powerful, and I didn't. So it stayed in this like, it was good, but it was like this, like not as grand as it could have been. Right. There was also situations where I was hurt, right? And I didn't feel as bad as I should have, right? Maybe I was the one that hurt somebody unintentionally, and it didn't even register, right? Because I'm good. I wouldn't do that. And I wasn't being intentional. I wasn't being aware. So fast forward to my relationship with Lindsay, who is all about growth and personal development and pushing my buttons, right? so she's really pushing me in like every area. And at this point, I'm still not about personal growth. I don't want that mirror held up to me. They say a relationship is like just a mirror showing you where like you need to be better. And I didn't want that. I didn't appreciate that. I was like, yo, let's just hang out and have fun like we are. I don't need this other stuff. And that was a cause for a lot of tension. And we had a lot of hard times, man. A lot of hard times. But I loved Lindsay. I loved her. And I saw how special she was. And she saw something in me. And so every time she would suggest like a self-help book or a podcast or whatever, some like, babe, maybe this will help you, right? I'm like, all right, for you, because I love you, I'm going to do this. But you see the problem with that, right? It's for you. It's not for me. I don't give two shits about it. Like, so what would happen is, man, is I would, what would happen is that I would like, we would go a week or like 2 weeks or maybe like a month or two if we're lucky, and like shit would feel good. We'd be like, man, this book is working. Casey's awesome. He's showing up better. Like, and then we would hit a disagreement or some situation that came up where I was called to show up, right? And I would instantly fall back to where I was before I started any of that, because I wasn't doing it for me. I was, and the problem again, right? Like my emotional blockage that didn't create an issue unless I was in a situation where it could show up as an issue. Me reading these books and thinking things were getting better, unless you have something that is like, okay, use this new skill set, right? You have no idea. You think, oh yeah, man, things are getting better. I'm killing it. And No, man, you hit that and you'd fall right back.
I just picture this. You're like putting on the mask, right? You put on
Exactly.
the mask for a
Yeah.
minute, but underneath nothing's changed. It's just the
Exactly.
mask has changed, whatever
Yeah.
that book is, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
And then when things hit the fan, you pull that mask off and you go back to who you are, right?
Yeah. It's your, you know, your defaults, man. It's your half-assed being. When you're not aware, awareness is huge, right? So when you're not aware, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah.
I'm still in my head. What are you talking about? Everyone loves me. Like everyone's saying I'm like, that's where I am. That's like my ego is the loudest shit in this world, man.
Yeah.
It's so loud. I tell you, like, and I wasn't like this dude who was like super popular. Like I was like in the middle. Like the popular kids like me, the like unpopular kids like me. And I always spent time trying to make like the people that people kind of shunned, I tried making them feel welcome no matter what my situation was. Like that was who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But I was blessed in the way that I was accepted by everybody, right? So again, it brings you back to this like ego mindset of like, I'm good. I don't need like, and yeah, man. So Lindsay and I, and you know, this is where it gets real, and this is where it brings us up kind of to like recent. And again, I'm skipping over a bunch of stuff. You might hear my girls in the background.
I love it.
My
He's
eldest.
rolling solo this weekend because Lindsay's at a retreat, and he was worried like about coming on the show. He's like, what if my kids talk in about stuff like that? I don't know if that's appropriate or okay. And I was like, dude,
yeah,
our kids
my eldest and I
stuff.
had a deal, so we'll see how it works out.
Yeah.
So that brings us to real recent, and I'm kind of glossing over.
Yeah.
Lindsay got sick for like, man, it was a long time, like 2.5 years after the birth of our daughter, and that kind of created a lot of stress. I had to pick up a lot of. I picked up a lot of doing, a lot of taking the physical burden upon myself of everything. But I was not showing up emotionally. So she she was feeling abandoned. And babe, if you're still watching, you know, like pop up if I'm like not saying anything.
You're surviving, right? Like you're surviving it. And there's hardly any emotion. Like there's heavy emotions, but they're not the kind that, you know, are empathetic or sympathetic, right?
Yeah, 100%. But again, remember at this point in my life, yeah, you do. And if I'm messing up any of this story, feel free to jump in. So, you know, and
we could get the real story from there later.
This is a great episode because you can get both sides at the same time.
Yeah, right.
Which is always important. There's always another side to a story.
And we don't do marriage counseling. So after this is done, you guys are on your own.
You know what? Nah, man, we're going into that. Yeah. But so for real though, like, well, for real we are, but no. But for real, like we so like what you just said was important. I want to touch that.
Yeah.
I wasn't showing up emotionally. I wasn't showing up empathetically. But remember, I hadn't been
right
at all since I was like teens. So think about that. Think about like Lindsay, no matter what situation we had to deal with, I wasn't showing up empathetically.
Well, I could see why, right? Like
I was showing up in the middle.
Yeah.
Of everything. And
well, think about this. Hang on to that for a minute, because think about this is you had these experiences that you created, these events in your life where people would leave after 2 years, or, you know, relationships weren't ever close. I didn't have parents around. And so you would stay in the middle because then you don't get too hurt. Right. If you're not all in, then you're not too hurt. So if something happens, you're able to just handle it. So doesn't that make sense that you would do something like that based 100%. On your growing up and development?
100%. But how limiting is that?
Yeah.
How limiting is that?
Yeah.
And think, like Casey and I felt this because this is like, I'm listening to you and going, okay, I'm not the only one.
No,
this
man.
is great.
No.
It was like I tried to make everybody my friend.
Yep.
Popular kids, the not popular kids, anybody. So if anybody did leave, it wasn't so impactful or hurtful.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to feel that pain. I had so many friends, it didn't matter.
Right.
But it was, and then I could be like, oh, it's okay. I got tons and tons and tons of friends, and something must be wrong with them.
We'll pull you back too, but I want to highlight the journeys, because when we start with unconsciousness. When we do our journeys, we start there because that's where you are. You're usually automatic in whatever you do. And then when you have this awareness, a lot of people go into the judgment of it. They're really hard on themselves when they wake up to what they've been doing. And rather than just being an observer. And then they go from that and they look at where they're measuring up, and they feel depression and anxiety because they're not measuring up to their own ideals, and they're not measuring up to society's ideals. And so we move them right there to acceptance and gratitude and feeling good, because all of that internal work is going to affect what happens out here. And until you do, like you said, it's like putting on a mask on top of that old stuff. So those first 6 journeys for us, when we do that work, it's heavy. People come out feeling really negative, really depressed, but you're clearing out the dog shit, right? You're clearing out the stuff that's not working.
So, man. So this is where, let's see. So this is where life gets interesting, right? So, I mean, and again, we're all aware. I know some people might not be, so I kind of want to touch on it, but we're all aware of Steve Hardison and his book that came out. Look at that poignant timing. So we're all aware, like the 3 of us. So there's this coach, Steve Hardison, this guy. This book came out about his life. If you guys are familiar with Seinfeld, Lindsay and I, one night we were watching it and we had like a funny epiphany. It was the episode where NBC comes to Jerry and they're like, we're going to give you a show. And his show's about nothing. And then they're trying to explain the show. That's how I feel about like trying to explain Steve Hardison's book to people and the concept of
that's
being.
Great. I like
that. Like, it's awesome. I can't explain it. It's whatever. You can figure it out. And, that was how I felt. Now I feel like I can kind of do it a little bit of justice. But so Lindsay got invited into that group, the Facebook group about being. And she was in there a little bit before me. And yes, I love Alan. I love Amy. I got to meet Amy a couple times too.
My man, Alan.
Yeah, shout out, Alan. I'll see you in a few days, man. So Lindsay got invited into that group. She spends a few days being like, what the fuck is this about? Because she didn't know anything about it. And she finds out it's about a book. She gets the book. She's doing the work. And this is where life gets crazy, man. Like, I'm watching my wife start choosing to show up intentionally being, right? I don't know what the hell's going on because I'm not part of this. But, like, I start seeing miraculous things happen in my wife's life.
I remember her first live that she did.
Dude.
Her very first live. She got super vulnerable, too. I was like, whoa, that was brave.
She gets vulnerable on all of it, man. The ones that include me, my ego is like, whoa. But no, man, we love that. We love that. Our mission, we'll get to that in a little bit, is really kind of trying to facilitate. Like, Ryan, I think one of you guys mentioned it about we're not alone. We're not alone. Everyone's having the same experiences, man. Everyone. I tell you what. And man. And so Lindsay gets in this group, finds out it's about this book, and every day she's like, "Yo, you need to get in here. It's amazing." And I'm like, at this point, I've been off Facebook for 8 years. I was not on Facebook at all. And I'm like, get away from me. I don't want any of that shit. Like, I don't want to hear it. I'm not getting back on. And so she keeps telling me
I'm not joining your cult.
Yeah, exactly. And so she keeps talking about it every day. And like one day she shows me this man's post, Antonio De Souza. And he's a big masculine guy, not unlike yourselves, which, I wouldn't necessarily say my frame is like that. But, he had this big, long post. And in the middle of it, he was talking about being at the gym and being uncomfortable in front of people or something to that effect. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm looking at you and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he talked about who he'd have to be to get out in front of everybody and hit that punching bag, right? Who would I have to be? He had started this journey as well. And I was like, damn, something about that spoke to me. Yeah. And so I joined the group and I'm poking around and I'm poking around this group and I'm seeing all these people share, right? And vulnerably. Yeah. And I'm seeing them share and it's touching me, man. It's moving. And I'm like, damn. And, Lindsay's like, yo, you got to make an introduction post. Cause I finally, I got in after seeing his thing and I joined just for that group. And, now I'm in Giants, now I'm in cigars and, all this stuff. Right. And, but like, I get in there and Lindsay's like, you got to make an intro post. And I'm like, no, I don't. And so like a few days go by and I'm like, all right. Yeah, no, you're not pushy, babe. You're like, you're my mirror. You're showing me what I got to do. And so I make this post, man. And I'm like, basically the post just summed up like exactly what we just spoke about, right? Yeah. My story. It just was a summary of my life. And man, the response I got, like, like comments on it, like likes or hearts or whatever, and people reaching out in my DMs, sliding in my DMs, and like was moving. It was moving. And the timeline kind of gets blurry in my head. I feel like it was a little while longer than I think what it actually was. But I see people doing these lives and they're touching. I'm gonna do a live. It's like, yo, babe, watch the kids. I'm going upstairs, do a live. And Lindsay was like, yeah, I got this. She was psyched. She was like, my man is like coming out of his shell. and I'm like, I go upstairs and like, I'm like, yeah, man, yeah. And like 20 minutes later, I get a text. Hey, I thought you were doing a fucking live. And I was like, yo, I'm staring at the button. All right, give me a minute. And then like, she walks in the room 10 minutes after that. And she's like this. She's like, now I'm like, there's someone else. She's got someone else from the group on FaceTime, Ariel. and they're like, just push the button.
It's a total Seinfeld. This is a Seinfeld episode right here. Just push the button.
In a more loving way than that. But that was.
Why isn't he pushing the button? Push the button.
Figure out what button. But
it's just the button.
So they come in and they're like, they build me up. I push the button. Uncomfortable, man. Uncomfortable. Yeah. And so like I do it, go through with it. You can tell it's uncomfortable. I did it. And I did it. I'm awesome. So I what's the deal?
I can hear it in my mind. And then Kramer pops in. Kramer's like, what's going on with the button? I heard there was a button.
I don't know if I told you now, but Lindsay's also funny sometimes.
Yeah.
And so push the button, do it. So the next morning I wake up and shout out to Eric Laughlin. Like I got a voice message from him. And those of you that don't know him, he runs the Facebook group On Being. And it's an amazing group. And I get a message from him. And remember, at this point, man, I'm still only a few weeks into this journey, right? And I get this message from him. Man, I'm gonna have to backtrack in a second, but that's
you're good. Yeah,
that's okay.
We can.
So I get this message. I get this message from him, and I'm paraphrasing. Obviously, it was a little while back. I can't remember it like exact, but it was, "Hey, man, I saw your live video, and she's not that funny." She knows I'm messing with her. She's pretty funny.
Man.
So I wake up and I got this message and it says something to the effect of, "Hey, Casey, I saw you live. man, he's like, I could tell it was uncomfortable. Amazing job. I want to give you a little bit of advice. Take it if you want, leave it if you don't. And he said something to the lines of, if you show up vulnerably, open-hearted, fully of yourself, and you also receive fully, right? You receive fully what people say to you. You're going to get more out of this group and out of life than you would otherwise. He's like, I promise. Sometimes when people say things, right place, right time, it kind of is a little more impactful. And that happened to be one of those times where I took it to heart. And that's when you see my transition really start going all in, right?
Yeah.
Going all in on showing up big time. But now is where I backtrack. So this is very important. So bear with me.
Yeah.
So when I first got in the group, again, didn't understand it. I didn't get it. And there was an event that went along with this at the end of January that some of you may not know about. And Steve, I love you, Steve Hardison. But at that point in my life, I did not get you. I didn't understand it. I love you now. And after seeing you in person, totally get it. And you're amazing. But at this point, I didn't. And I didn't even know any of these people. I didn't know Eric. I didn't know Steve. I didn't know any coaches. It wasn't my life, right? So, sorry about that. It's probably loud for you guys.
We won't go back and highlight it. It was
So there was a moment, and I just spoke about the moment, of Eric's message touching me, right?
Yeah.
There was a moment at the beginning of this journey. I don't know exactly when, looking back, I had this epiphany about being, right? I had this epiphany when it came to me, what it looked like for me, because it can look different to everybody. It's not going to look the same. Why is it not going to look the same? Because we all have totally different lives. We all have these filters. We all have like my daughter the other day, she had these I don't even know where the hell she got them, man. They're like flimsy plastic, like red and a blue one and a red one. And she's putting it in front of her face, right? And everything's red. Or then she's like, oh, everything's blue. That's like, when I tell myself to you guys right now, you're both hearing a different story. One of you's got a red filter, one of you's got a blue filter.
I like that. Yeah.
You don't know that, but you guys live totally different lives up to this point, and no one has lived the same life. Lindsay, my mother, my daughters, I can sit them in the room, tell them all the same story, and they're all going to hear it different. They're all going to hear it different. No one's going to see you exactly the same, and you can't control that.
I had to look up that word real quick. Epiphany, right? Because I love diving into it. The roots of it. It means to reveal and to shine, right? To shine a light on something.
Yeah.
And here you have this epiphany, and this is a beautiful epiphany. Is we all have our color. We all have our way of seeing, right? Our way of viewing the world, and to have that realization and that revealing of that to you. That's where we start to feel changes, because we start to see the light shine on things we didn't see before.
Right.
That's cool.
So yeah, man. So you that came to me in a moment. Now, right before January, so this is the end of 2021, right? Lindsay and I weren't doing good, man. We weren't doing well. Like I will take full blame. Lindsay will jump in hopefully and be like, no, Casey, you're only a part of it. She's like, no, babe, you're only part of it.
That wasn't all you. She comes back on. Yeah, it was totally him.
She might, we don't know. But I'm gonna own it, right? I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna own, because like I said, my old relationships didn't work out, right? When you start being aware and thinking of things, what's the common denominator, right? What do I have control of?
Yeah.
Just me.
Yeah.
I'm part of why all of these things didn't work out. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about this book. I'm thinking about being, and I'm thinking about how I've been half-assed being my whole life.
Hmm.
And it just dawns on me, man, that like the reason why all of the like self-help books, all the podcasts, all that shit, that the reason why that wasn't working for me was part because I was doing it for someone else. And was and it was just like part because as a man who provides, who at that point was sole provider for a family of 5, right? Who was also picking up a lot of slack, who was also, at this point, Lindsay's healthier, so she's helping again, but I still have that mentality, right? I still have that mentality of like, man, I'm fucking doing so much. Like I'm doing so much. I'm like, I got my 9 to 5. I got to do all this stuff after. That was how I was living my life, man. That's how I was showing up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wasn't choosing who I was being in that.
Hmm.
And I was just being however I was being, because you can't not be. Um,
Can we create a distinction right here
yes.
between shame and guilt, right? And here's a version that I'll hold for a minute, and maybe you can help with this and clarify it, right? The idea of
I'll
shame.
try. I
You
don't know if I
wake
can.
up to these things, right? So you have this awareness and this waking up to the way that you've been. That's contributed to whatever's going on in your world.
Mm-hmm.
Shame would say that you're broken, unworthy, unable to change it, a terrible, evil human being. Like you really start to identify with things that make you less than you are. Whereas guilt would be an awakening with the idea of, yeah, I did that. And there's some cleaning up to do, and I'm willing to do that. And versus, the shame of, I'm just a terrible human.
Yeah.
Well, guilt would be, I did some terrible things and I can clean that up. I can change it.
Yeah.
Do you have a version of that maybe that can make that even more clear?
I don't have a good version of that.
Okay.
I have a, oh man, this is like, and everyone watching, man, this is like real shit, right? It's like, I show up real. I show up me, right? I just missed what Hugh wrote, but
We'll go
Yeah, they
slower.
went through pretty quick. Yeah.
there you go. Thanks.
Ryan's on
Yeah.
speed mode.
So I'm gonna talk to that, right?
Yeah.
And all you guys are saying the same thing, and
Yeah.
well, maybe not, maybe like different shades of it. But I spoke about my ego earlier. I didn't feel any of that shit. Like,
Yeah.
I am still in my head at that point. I'm good, man. I'm good.
Wow,
I did some fucked up shit. I
Yeah.
did some fucked up shit, but I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't
Right.
aware of it. It happened. It was a thing that happened. So I didn't have guilt. I didn't have shame. Like,
More of an apathy. Like,
yeah, 100%. I was
Yeah.
just like, yo, I'm moving forward, and I'm
Yeah.
choosing how I'm showing up now, and I'm not gonna be that guy anymore. Like,
Huh.
but I was that guy, right? Oh, thanks, babe. So yeah, so I can't speak to that in the way a lot of people will. But you know what?
Yeah.
But you know what? That's going to speak to the people that I'm meant to speak to.
Yeah.
And that's what I want everyone to know, right? And I share that a lot, is that there's some people that made their first post, right? First post. They finally build up the courage, and they're like, I'm going to make this post, and they make a post. I've had like so many people that I've reached out to. Your post touched me. Your post spoke to me. They didn't think it was going to touch anybody. And I will tell you, whomever you are hearing this right now, what you have to say will touch somebody. It will. There's someone whose situation at some point was close enough to yours that they're going to relate. Your audience may not be big enough, but there's someone out there. If you put it on Facebook and it's public, there's someone out there that's going to read that and be like, I needed to hear that today.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Can we go back to that last quote there, Ryan, the accountability and ownership? I want to dive a little deep on this and dissect it a bit. you talk about ownership. You don't count other people's money, right? You don't count other people's possessions. You count your own. But you can't count your own if you don't own it. You can't really account for anything if you don't own it. And so that first step of like you said, there's nothing to account for because I didn't own this. I didn't do anything. It wasn't me. You know, it's something happened, but I was a different person then. No big deal, right? Apathetic. I don't own it. So there's no accounting. And so taking ownership, the ability to do that means that not only do you take ownership, you take responsibility for what is, and you account for what is, which is just telling what's present. You account it. And then wherever there's some cleaning up to do, you do that. And wherever there's growth to do, you do that. But that's part of that ownership. If you never take ownership, the word honesty, right? The word honesty comes from the word own, to own. And so if you never own it, you can never be honest. And if you can never be honest, there's nothing to account to. You're just being, but like you said, recklessly in a way. You're half-assed being.
Huh.
Did that bring up any additional thoughts or?
No, I mean, man, I can't tell you how long I've pondered on all of this. You know? So it's like, it's not, you know, it's, I own it all. But as a possibility, the past is just a lesson. We had an example recently that came up where my ego was kind of hurt, right? And I'm still getting better every day, kind of dropping that. But it was so big, man, so powerful my whole life that there's still times when it comes out. And my point of this, I had a point of bringing up this story.
Look left to right. That'll trigger the brain.
It was, there was a point to it, but I want to we'll backtrack for a second. Where, you know, man, I don't even know where we were a second ago.
Well, so, let's do this because you hit on ego. You go on to ego. I have a tattoo on my arm. It's two wolves, white and black, right? Light and dark. Who was it? Jordan Peterson. I was watching him the other day, and there's just a phenomenal video about the right and left hemispheres of the brain, the creative side and the logical side. And ego tends to be more earth-based, society-based, cultural-based, fitting in, doing what we've got to do to make it in this world. Whereas the right hemisphere and that side of our brain, the more spiritual side of us is out there creating and imagining and pulling things in that are ethereal and making those into reality. But it's truly a blending of the two worlds. You know, it's almost like I keep hearing people, you got to kill the ego. That would make the ego pretty fucking scared, I would imagine, because it's a part of you and it's necessary for you to create in this world because it really supports the logical side of you that has to make some decisions that are rational. And then you have this creative side that you bring in and you blend the two worlds. It's not killing the ego. It's learning to work with the ego. It's not feeding one wolf over the other. It's feeding both. It's recognizing that there's an interplay between that left hemisphere, right hemisphere, ego, spirit, you know, good, bad, whatever you want to call it, is learning to work with the shadow and the light. It's learning to do both. You know, I can't imagine a world that's just bland, you know, like you said, one color, and that's all you see. That's what you do when you kill off ego. We don't want an ego death. We're just trying to get at a relinquishing of it just being purely ego. Or being purely ethereal and spiritual. You look at, you know, monks as an example, is they'll go out into the purely spiritual side, but there's not much material creation there. There's a lot of understanding from where they're at. And you'll see monks come into this world and they start blending those worlds. And it's really cool to see them bring that spiritual side into the cultural spiritual side, you know, where we've got to perform. And so I would wonder, as you speak of ego, you know, as you bring that up, if that creates a shift of perception in you, or if you've got some differing views on that, I'd be open to that, you know. What does that bring up for you?
No, I mean, oh man. So I've What that brings up for me, man, is like honestly a conversation that I had. It's not necessarily ego based, but it's kind of related for me.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, which was this thought of, man, I'm blanking right now. It's early morning stuff.
There's
You're
this,
good.
there's
It's
this like,
Go ahead.
Casey, like for me, I still sometimes find myself like, well, let me go back. So when I was in my particular way of being and not aware of how I was being,
Yeah.
it was my default as growing up. It was my way to protect myself. I call it Little Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
It was the things that I did to surround myself with other people or things so that if something left, then I wasn't, left alone. It's my
Yeah.
abandonment issues and things like that. And so I didn't ever let anyone get too close to Ryan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I felt the same or very similar as you in your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nick talks about how there's this bus, and little Ryan has a seat on the bus, and he's
We
always going to have a seat
call it
on
the
the.
struggle bus, right?
It is the struggle bus. It struggles, and it
Yeah.
still sometimes is a struggle. But before I was made aware of my, and I'm going to call it my operating system,
Mm-hmm.
and that it was causing. Now it wasn't serving me in a healthy way or the healthiest of ways, and causing relationship issues, not protecting me like I thought. I would allow little Ryan to step up and have a very loud voice and sometimes reach over and grab a hold of that steering wheel and yank it right or left or slam on the brakes or hit the gas or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
As I became aware of how I was showing up, and several people started to say, "Hey, it's okay. You can love little Ryan. It's okay. He's part of you."
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing the best he could freaking do at that time.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, little Ryan, that network or that operating system doesn't work for you anymore, and it's hurting relationships. So we need to shift that. So I've been learning how to, when little Ryan stands up and starts to get loud, I can reach back and say, "Hey, I love you, but I'm driving this bus. You need to sit
Mm-hmm.
down
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and be quiet." And sometimes he still reaches over and grabs a hold of the steering wheel, and I have to, yeah, okay, come on back, bring it on back, sit back down, Ryan. And so, and I can see that in your story.
Yeah.
And that could be also, like equated to ego, where you think that's, the ego is shouting through, like, or you were, maybe it's the pride, in
Mm-hmm.
us, maybe it's something like that. But if we can just let other people help us see those things, and as we become more aware and practice it, put it into practice, and then be gentle with ourselves. We talk about grace a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Is it be gentle? Because
Mm-hmm.
I have 41 years of building my story and having little Ryan have a pretty loud voice.
Yeah.
I'm learning, and there's multiple versions of that as I got older and I had experiences. I'm using those experiences to then be conscious and aware of how I'm showing up, because I've done some things too that I could shame the crap out of myself for.
Yeah. That's.
But then as have been made aware, and sometimes very painfully,
Mm-hmm.
and I've lost friends, I've lost family, I've lost, some very close relationships because of the way of being.
Yeah.
Now I get to choose, where do I go from here? How do I show up?
Yeah.
And I can
Yeah.
be humble and and recognize it, or I have the choice to let little Ryan grab a hold of the steering wheel and yank me way off course. And you'll
That's a,
always have that choice.
right. That's a beautiful
Um,
share.
so there you go.
Yeah, man. That's a beautiful share. That's a beautiful share. And I'm appreciative of that. Thank you. And what that brought back to me is what you brought up, and ego, and why I said it wasn't necessarily 100% related, but it is. one of the things that was in me, right, is judgment, right? And not in a like, I never considered myself like judgy, right? I didn't, but I was. I had a conversation with Townsend one day, and it was brought up just how much I was, right, in telling them my story. And the thing is, you got to be. It comes to, forgiving yourself, right? So I would, like I said in the past, when come here, man. In the past, when what do you guys say?
She collecting her $5.
No, we're doing the picnic. We're gonna go on a picnic a little later. Just say hi.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hi.
We're gonna go on a picnic later, baby.
You hit the live button, didn't you, Dad?
Here, take this. Maybe Lula can help you call mommy or something. Okay, let Daddy finish. Yeah, we're gonna go before nap. You're not taking a nap today. No nap today.
No naps.
No nap today. We're gonna go to the park, have a picnic.
Oh, Bobo. It's Bobo.
Yeah.
Oh, so cute.
And so it was pointed out to me in 100%, right? I didn't think I was judgy. Like I said, I lived trying to be a good human.
Yeah.
But then I realized I was deciding who I was going to help. I was deciding who deserved my help. How was I deciding that? I was judging people who I thought did or didn't need me, right? I don't know their story. I don't know what lens they have. I don't know what they've been through. So no one, and I think Steve says this too, right? He's like, no one's deserving of my judgment, right? And it's true. You don't know what anyone's gone through, but that was ego playing that part, right?
Does that mean that you don't judge, like you don't have judgments, or just that they're not? And I'm setting you up here a little bit, but that they're just not worthy of hearing it. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't. I think as a human, I believe that we're going to have judgments. We just do it, right?
So 100%. So where I take that, and again, this goes back. I think Ryan, you touched on it big time, right? Awareness. My big words: awareness, intention, self-forgiveness. Those three things. When I started this journey, right? When I started this journey, and I didn't finish this from earlier, so I'm going to finish it right now.
Yeah.
When I started this journey, and I had that epiphany back at the beginning, and I told you that like a week or two before that, like Lindsay and I weren't doing well. We were talking separation. That's how not well we were doing, right? And I told you I did all the self-help books, all the podcasts, all that shit. None of it worked. When I had that epiphany that I was going to intentionally create who I was being, everything changed overnight. Overnight. Lindsay and I went from verge of separation to feeling like we had the relationship that we always wanted. Now I can't take full credit for that. I'll give her a little bit, but I was removing all of the things that I did. And that was the part of my epiphany that changed my life, right? Was every other time I felt overwhelmed by all of this shit that I have to do to be a better human, to show up differently, read these books, listen to these podcasts, do this work, right?
Yeah.
You think you're doing good because nothing bad's happening. Something bad happens, you fall back to shit, right?
Yeah.
Through the thought I had, the realization I had that I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was show up, being who I wanted to be, right? So, and I've heard others refer to it as the pause. Lindsay and I also refer to it as the pause. I have who I know I want to be. in every moment, right? Sometimes it requires a little different version, but it's all me and who I want to be in that moment. And I take a pause before I go into a new moment, right? So, and a moment's not like 30 seconds. It's not a certain time. It's an event, right? So this is a moment. My time with you right now is a moment. I cleared my head before, and I'm only fully present with you outside of the time my daughter comes in, right? Like, I'm only present with you because this is all I can do for the time we're together. I can't do anything else. So I'm listening to you. I'm fully with you. And when you do that, right? So say this moment's done. I'm leaving here, right? Steve Bacon! Yo, Steve, she heard you the other day. Bo M heard you the other day. And out of nowhere, I hear from the other room, Steve Bacon! And yeah, she loves it. But so I clear my head before each new moment, right?
I could hear you saying this. This is going to be random and off topic, but to go take a pause, you're like, hold on, man, I gotta go take a pee.
It's
pee for pause.
But so if you do that, right? If you do that with anybody, like when I leave this, I'm going to my daughters. Right? I'm gonna be present with them. And I'm gonna clear my head as I leave.
Love it.
And I'm gonna be like, who am I showing up as with my daughters? Right?
Yeah.
When you have that thought and you have like your document, or in the other group, your document, or just knowing who you want to show up as, right? If you have that thought before each moment, you're a lot less likely to be reactive and show up as someone you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Because you're intentionally setting, I want to show up unconditional love. I want to show up as understanding. I want to show up in integrity with who I want to be. Right. And it is very difficult to show up as an asshole.
Yeah.
If right before the moment you're like, yo, I want to come from love. Then you have to intentionally be like, yo, I'm going to be an asshole instead, right? It's just like,
and that really could be a way of being, right? You could choose into that. You could say, today I'm going to be an asshole, and be 100% the best asshole in the world, right? Like
there are people that may make that choice, but it's not my goal. It still happens, but it's not my goal.
But you hit on intentionality, right?
Yeah.
And I love this, man. I could go on hours with you, and but the intention is what matters. Is you're conscious and you're stretching toward this thing that you want to create yourself as, and then you're practicing that. And when you're not that, you're gentle with yourself as you work back into becoming that. It's not. That's the cycle. It's not like you're shaming yourself because, oh, I missed the mark by 100%. I'm a terrible human. I'm broken. All that stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's I'll ease back into realigning with who I commit to be, who I choose to be.
Exactly. And that's where I speak of awareness, intention, self-forgiveness. You're gonna fuck up sometimes, but that's okay. Own it and forgive yourself. Move on. It's a lesson.
Yeah.
And it's a chance to do better next time.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's gonna have that. Realistically, what all of this boils down to, and what made it so simple and underwhelming, is that you don't have to do shit. You just have to choose who you want to be and be that.
Yeah.
Like, it changed my life, man. It changed my life. And I started showing up through that epiphany, through that one message from Eric. Like, I started showing up big, intentional. It changed my relationship with Lindsay. It changed my relationship with my kids. It's brought so much into my life, and I'm still getting better at a lot of things. But I liken it to the peeling of an onion, right? Those first layers are kind of easy to remove. But once you get further and further in, you're gonna hit some hard shit, man.
Yeah.
Be gentle with yourself.
And tons of
Forgive.
tears along the way.
Tons of tears along the way. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to say, I told you guys, like, there were so many years I didn't feel shit. And that's true. That's true. I was like in the middle. I was muted. I'm happy to say that I've cried a few times since all this has started. So, you know, it's a good thing. You know, it's a good thing. Like, because you feel broken. You feel broken when you have really wonderful things happen and you don't feel real happy. And you feel horrible when you have real sad things happen. Like, I had friends like over the last few years who passed away, and I didn't cry, man. And I wanted to, and I couldn't. There was a block. I couldn't feel big.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know if she's talking to me or Nick, or maybe you.
Specifically the last sentence.
I'm hoping it's me, but she's doing amazing things this weekend, man. Her and Judy. So much love to them. And yeah, guys. I mean, I could talk all day, but I know we've crested an hour. I don't know what your kind of plans are the rest of the day, but
there's a picnic that's got to happen.
Yeah. We'll wrap up. We can have you on again. I mean, that's the beauty of what we do is we can have you come back on with expectation. I'll leave you all wondering.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain it's not me. So you figure that out.
I want to kiss Casey too at this moment.
Yeah.
Amazing. This dude's unreal.
I'll give you all some big hugs, man.
Ryan,
my one question that I have for you, how long does it take you to hit the live button now?
Oh shit, man, that stuff's like pretty quick.
A little easier now, right? And I've seen a bunch of your lives. You walk into the pool, or, go for a walk. You're like Schmaltzy. You're like Schmaltzy, where he goes his walk talk.
Yeah.
Now it's not as hard, right? As you're being intentional.
I like it as a walkie-talkie, dude. Like rather than a walk talk. Sounds too short.
It was, man. It was. There are definitely still times when I get a little nervous before getting on, depending on what I'm talking about. But when I started doing those like cold calls, when it was like 45 in the morning and the pool's not heated in our community, like. Yeah, that shit was cold, man. But I was like, I'm going to do ice baths. And, it was pretty cold. And, then I was like, you know what? I'm going to call it cold calls and be all cool and do these lives from the pool. Oh. And, that was fun. But the chlorine messed with me, though.
Watching you guys and and in a relatively quick time, because the Ultimate Coach Facebook group hasn't been there that long.
Yeah.
Watching your relationship shift, and very publicly,
100%.
both were like, okay, we're going to put this out there. We're both going to do the work and see where this thing goes and get intentional about it. And watching that and meeting you guys at the Ultimate Experience and being Gilmans, right? Like I got a picture. You guys were talking to somebody. I just popped my head in, and take a picture. You guys like, oh, we're doing this. Okay, here we go.
I almost wore my tracksuit top with no shirt on to this, but I decided not to last minute.
Yeah, that would have been rad. There's always a next time, and we'll have you back on again. My
next time I'll do it.
Man.
We will for sure. My whole thing goes back to, remove the thoughts that hold you back, and it's not necessarily removing them, because like we said, that you're still going to have some of those thoughts. Steve Hardison still has fear. He still has doubt. He still has worry. He still has anxiety. I know he does.
Yeah.
But it's how quickly he can transmute or change that, or tell the person on the bus to sit down.
Yeah.
And then he can shift it or change it. And he's become a master at doing that. And so it relates back to consciousness and awareness and the things that you have been talking about, and loving yourself. And so I just love that. I just love seeing your journey and relating so much to where you're at. And I want you to know that there's a bunch of other people, that because you stepped up to the plate and were willing to do the work, that it's helped change and shift their lives. And I'm pointing to me specifically because as you've been talking, I've related so much. I've watched your lives. There's been moments when I haven't been who I could be, and I was out of integrity. And there's going to be moments in the future that it'll be the same. I'm 100% sure of it, because we're human.
Exactly.
But as we do that, and as I work on my level of consciousness and awareness, and can be able to shift that, I know that continue to spiral up. And that's what giants do. They continue to help each other to spiral up, even when we have moments of smallness. And we love each other and hang tight to each other. And so thank you for being a giant in our world. Thank you, Lindsay. I know she's gone doing her thing now, but she's doing giant things as well. We'll have to have her on the show. But thank you for spending the time with us, Casey. You're the man.
Yeah.
We love you tons, man.
I love you, man. I appreciate that. That was beautiful. I love you.
You know, just a final thought here about mastery, right? You talked about being masterful. It's something, that word comes from maestro, which means teacher, that you know something so well that you can teach it, right? That's mastery, that you've gotten to that point where you're living it, where you've fulfilled, put yourself so into it that you've mastered it, that you can teach it, right? And that's what I feel from what you're doing, is you're mastering this. You've mastered areas of it. You continue to master. You look for other areas that you can master in your life that you could teach on, and you continually share and teach. And that's what all of us are doing anyway, coaching or these podcasts or anything. It's just it's all teaching. It's what we know and what we're learning along the way. I think it's beautiful, man. And it's like going back to the picture that Lindsay painted right behind you. Sometimes that journey, there's a lot of undergrowth that needs to happen, the root journeys that need to happen before that growth can occur. And that can take years. So for those that are watching, I feel like we hit on all 12 journeys here. And for those that are watching, we always say this: you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You haven't lost time. You're right on time, and you're doing what you should be doing, or could be doing. Let's say it that way. And there's a possibility for growth. So as you become neutral with who you are and where you're at, you're there. This is where you are. So let's start there. Let's get going. And so any other final thoughts from you?
Yeah, let's get fucking going. No, man. So I could just keep talking forever, but man. My final thoughts are just, it's make it easy, man. Like, we overcomplicate a lot of shit. Life's real easy, and if you take it one moment or event, however you want to look at it, at a time, man, it gets real underwhelming. Right. And I say that in an amazing way, not in a like, it always seems weird to say underwhelming.
Yeah.
And, I mean that in the most positive way, because it's like, it just makes life feel easier.
Yeah.
And, man, it's easier to then come up from love, right? Show up for everybody with love.
Picnic time for teddy bears, the little teddy bear. You got to take them out on the picnic.
Lori's telling me she's tired of hearing me talk.
She's like, hey, you got Bubos ready to go. Ready to go.
I got some cleaning to do first. I don't want my coming home to this mess.
And if anybody wants to contribute to Casey's FU fund or the F fund, he's going to need it, because his kids are collecting.
Matt Evans is in the house.
Matt Evans.
We got the Ultimate Coach. What is it? The Ultimate Experience event in London.
London. That's coming up this week.
It's coming up quick.
Flying out Wednesday.
That's awesome. Guys, thanks for watching. As always, go make it a giant day. Lean on us. Come be a part of the tribe. Go take those questionnaires that we have in there. They'll really serve you in your journey. We got all kinds of programs to help you as you move along. And so go make it a giant day, and we'll see you in the next video.
I love you guys.